So I've put a few videos now on YouTube, and they're kind of been a hodgepodge of videos. Started out with me putting a few videos on here of fixing my trailer, removing the shocks. I just put a video on here last week. It was a crappy one of me uploading changing the oil. I started out, I changed a couple of these boards back here on the back of the trailer. There's one in the back corner back over here. And at the same time, I ended up doing a video about the shocks, because that job led into doing the shocks. Another video was of me changing the air conditioner. Something was wrong with the air conditioner. I can't remember what it was now, but I was having issues with the selection fan, the selector, changing it from hot to cold. I think that's what it was. But yeah, this thing here. And about 10 years ago or 12 years ago, I also made a video of me driving a truck. Back then I had a 2004 Freightliner FLD. I really liked that truck. I paid $9,400 for it. I drove for about a year because I paid such little. Let me move over here to the trailer. Since I paid so little for the trailer, for the truck and trailer, I paid what, $9,400 for the truck. I think I paid $7,000 for the trailer, and my goal was to not really work all that hard. All I wanted to do was just get out there and kick at it, knock it around, little short stuff. Somebody called me for something. I just sort of wanted to be on the retirement basis a little bit. Everything I had was paid for. My land that I got now was already paid for. I had a mobile home at the time that was on the property. The only thing that I had a goal to do was to build a house. And at first I wasn't even going to build a house. I was just going to buy a double wide and put a double wide on it. But after about 3 years, well, take that back. I sold that first truck I bought. And when I sold it, I had back surgery. That's when they replaced the L4, L5 in the disc. And the reason I sold that truck is because it was paid for. And I did like 58,000 miles that year, or around 50,000, which is about a half a year. But I still found myself working, when I was working, 12, 14, 15, 16 hours a day, and I wasn't making enough money because there's a curve in expenditures. You've got insurance and you've got maintenance, and really that year I didn't even have any maintenance on that truck. All I had was, I think I put a clutch in. I think I paid $2,000 for a clutch that year, probably a set of tires, and I think that was, other than that, there was really nothing wrong. I knew I had a clunking in the front end. I was going to have to change a kingpin or something. I had to get some work done on the front end of it. And at the end of the year, I was leased on to a company. I didn't even have my own authority back then. I was leased on to a company, and they took 10% of my money. I was booking my own loads like I'm doing right now under my own authority. But because they were, I didn't pay them much. I paid 10%, which I still should have made a profit, but I wasn't. And I was putting in so much effort to book the loads, and everything was, I was trying to stay around my house, South Carolina, Georgia, maybe a little bit of Alabama, Charlotte, Charleston, Jacksonville, Florida, just right around here, and I just wasn't making any money. People would call me to go to Atlanta for $450. This was in 2010, and I just didn't make any money. So I sold the truck after 1 year. And then about a year later, I gave it another shot. I called a guy up and said, hey, can I come work for you? And he says, well, he goes, I'm just starting a business and I'm going to lease 5 trucks. And I've got a truck that I'm leasing out of a company out of in Atlanta. And so anyway, I went and picked the truck up for him. I paid for it, rented a car under my money, went to Atlanta, picked up his car. He was supposed to reimburse me, which he never did. I drove his truck for about 2 months. And then I realized that he wasn't making any money because the company that he had leased his trucks onto was taking like 20 or 25%. I'm not quite sure. And I was keeping track of what I was booking and what they was paying him and what he was paying me. And I said, this guy is not making any money. And I was getting very nervous, and I quit. I took the truck back to where he had the truck leased onto, which was a company out of Wichita, Kansas. And they were pulling refrigerated trailers. So I dropped the truck off in Wichita and I left it, rented a car, came home. Then I called him and told him, hey man, your truck is in Wichita. It's got full tanks of gas. I filled it up at the terminal before I dropped it off. I said I had a load that was going to California and you was late paying today. You sound like you're struggling. The last thing I want to do is get a week or 2 weeks behind on you and not get paid and put in 70 hours, 140 hours and not get paid for it. So I said, I'm just going to, I'm going to end it right here. And I don't even remember if he even paid me for that load. He actually even accused me of stealing fuel. And I gave him a spreadsheet of every fuel stop I filled up and said, here's what the truck is averaging on the fuel that I purchased on your fuel card. This is what it's averaging. And it was right around 6.2, 6.3 miles per gallon. I said, I don't know how you can even say, and I knew that he wasn't keeping records. And I said, I know this fella thinks he had mentioned to me earlier, about a week before, that he thought somebody was stealing fuel. And I tried to explain to him that he needed to be keeping records and why he needed to keep records. And I also told him you need to be hands-on with this company that you got your truck leased onto. I said, because I can see, I ran a truck for a year on my own. And I said, and what they're paying you, I don't see where you're making any money to even clear a profit after you're paying us a percentage of the load and blah, blah, blah. So what I ended up doing was just leaving, and I went and bought my own truck. And I told my wife, I said, I tried it temporarily working for a company, and leased it onto a company, trying to be part-time. You can't be part-time and be a truck driver. You can, but you can't. Because when you put in a full day, a part-time is somebody that works 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a day. Once you accept the load, and it's got to go to Atlanta, you got to go pick the load up, even if it's pick it up in your own hometown. You got to go pick that load up, and it's going to take an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. Then you drive to Atlanta, that's another 2.5, 3 hours. You've already got 6 hours invested in the load already. And then if you come home, you got another 3 hours. So that's a 9-hour day if you even get enough money to come back home empty. But most of the loads weren't paying enough money to come home empty, so I was having to look out of Atlanta for a load coming back to Augusta. There never was a load coming back to Augusta that paid any money. So I ended up in Charleston, and then I would take a load from Atlanta to Charleston. I might go through the house, eat dinner on the way in, but then I would continue on to Charleston to be down there tomorrow morning. And then from Charleston, I'd try to find a load back to Augusta. There was nothing coming to Augusta, so you'd end up going to Charlotte or back to Atlanta or somewhere else, like maybe even Alabama. So I'd pass through the house again. I was passing through the house quite regularly, but I wasn't part-time. I'd have to pick a load up in Charleston and go to Alabama. Now you got another 8-hour day involved, 10-hour day. And at the end of the week, I was getting home. I was getting through the house kind of regularly, but I was still putting in 40 hours, 50 hours. How was that part-time? So that's when I sold that truck. Well, I told the wife, I'm kind of getting my two stories mixed up, but that's when I ended up deciding that I was going to, because my goal was to buy the double wide. And I said, I can't do it working part-time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out here, I'm going to hustle for the next 3 years. And if I'm not going to worry about saving any extra money for too much of anything, I'm just going to get out here and hustle and get about $70,000, $80,000, pay cash for a double wide, and then we're back to square one. I don't care what happens to the truck. So I went and bought a used truck. It was an International. And I got out there with the intentions, then got in the frame mind that I'm going to work full time, balls to the wall. I'm going to put in all the time I can and build up this money. Well, already that International was causing me problems, and it was dropping oil pressure. The oil light was coming on. And I done spent $28,000 for this truck. My last truck I bought, I paid $9,400 for it. Now I've got a $28,000. The last trailer I bought, I paid $7,000, and I think I paid $12,000 for a used trailer this time. So now I'm like $35,000, $37,000 into my investment, and I've got like a $1,200, $1,500, it was a $1,500 truck and trailer payment. And I'd already seen some maintenance coming with that truck. So after 3 months, I had about 10 grand saved up, or about 20 grand. So I went to the dealership, and I found the first dealership that would take a trade-in on that International and get me out from under it, and I got a brand new Kenworth W900. And then I worked my butt off for the next 3 years, and I ended up punching in about 70, 80 grand in the bank. And that was about where I was at, but I still had like, 3 more years to make payments on the truck. Now this truck started giving me problems. I ended up putting $12,000 into the head. That wasn't the problem. I ended up putting another $24,000 to replace the liners. It became a succession, but I kept pushing the money back up. Things would happen. There was a hurricane came in, I made big money. Something else happened. A local company gave me some round trip loads going up to Richmond and back, and I made like $34,000 in like a month and a half. Was home almost daily, and I just kept losing the money. The money was going out $20,000, $30,000, and then I'd put it right back up to where I lost it. And eventually, after about 5 or 6 years, I built up enough that I was able to build my house. And I decided to build a house instead of buying a double wide, because a house appreciates whereas a double wide depreciates. And the minute you pay for that double wide, you're not going to be able to sell it. And then even if it's on your land and your property, in 10 years the thing is garbage. The carpet in the thing was garbage, the cabinets, the toilets, the sinks, everything about the double wide. When I got to looking at them, I said, you know what, I'm just going to build a house. You can go out and get manufactured homes. You can upgrade the double wide from, paneling on the walls to 2x4s or even 2x6s, or you could upgrade them to sheetrock, or you could get shingles and get the higher pitched roof. But by the time you start doing all those things, I was at the price of what I could build a house for. So I ended up just going with the house. And that's what I ended up getting. And you can see it right over here in the background. There's the house. So I got my house over here, got my truck parked over here, my dry van trailer parked over here. My mother was living over here beside me, but she passed away about 1.5 years ago. She had cancer as well. I say as well because I just found out through the dermatologist about a month ago that I had a melanoma, skin cancer on my arm over here. And I flew home, I got that removed, flew back to California, picked my trailer back up, booked a load back to North Carolina, and now I'm home again. So that's kind of my roundup story of how, everything where I'm at right now for the last 10 years. Kind of gives you a feel of me and who I am. And like I said, I've been trying to create YouTube content. I don't even know why. I've always enjoyed taking pictures and sharing pictures of places I went. And I really didn't want the content on YouTube to be about trucking. But how can I avoid it? Everything around my life revolves around this right here, my truck. Everything. I can't do anything. I mean, I come home, I've got to wash it. I've got to change the oil. I've got maintenance to do. I've got to order tires. When I'm on the road, I got to make sure I got a spare tire with me. I'm booking freight. I'm billing the invoices. I'm waiting 30, 40, 50 days to be paid on loads. Anything that's late on payments, I got to go back and check and reconcile who's paid me and who hasn't. If they're more than 45, 50 days, I got to put an email in and say, hey, I'm checking on the inquiry of the load I did for you guys back on such and such a date. Can you please update the status? Just so much. I mean, I can get out here and hustle, but look at it. I mean, look at my eyes. I've been home now for 2 weeks for surgery to let my arm heal. All I did is flew back out to California and I come back. I'm 55 years old. I'm just burnt out. The loads on the load board are just garbage. People keep hauling this cheap freight. They're driving the prices down through the floor. Brokers are taking advantage. It's hard to even make a blog about anything positive anymore. It's all it turns into is me whining and crying about the rates. And some people say, well, you know, I don't know. I've got assets. I've got a $220,000 semi truck sitting right there. I've got a $40,000 trailer. I've got equipment. Brokers can't move freight without me, and they can't move nobody's freight without a truck driver. And yeah, there is truck drivers hauling cheap freight, and I don't know why and how, but they just, new guys just keep rolling into the, you know, getting their authority, leasing on the companies. They don't know their cost of operation. They think at $1.60, $1.50, $1.70, when they see $2 on the loads, they think they're doing something. And because that's where I'm seeing the loads topping out at right now. $2, $2.20, occasionally $2.30. But when I say $2.30, they're doing that on short miles, like from here to Charleston, you know, doing a little 280-mile run for $2.30 a mile. When it's a short run like that, anything under 300 miles, you don't even go by the cents per mile. You go by a day rate. And my day rate to break even daily, because a little 300-mile run is going to take you all day. It's going to eat up your whole day. It's hard to make any money. If you're not doing 900, $1,000 on a load like that, you're just spinning your wheels. At the end of the day, you just gave away all your time. Yeah, you paid for your fuel. You put enough money in the bank to cover your cost. My cost of operation on an average run, like 300 to 400 miles a day, is about $1.65 a mile. And if you break that down, if you take all the costs for 10 years and average out, even last year, my average cost last year was about $1.65. And that's also falls right along with my 10-year average is about $1.65 for a 10-year average of operating that truck and trailer and all expenses included before paying myself. So anything that I make above $1.65 a mile, and then I've also taken that cost and broken it down per day of how many days I operate. I don't look at how much money I've made in 10 years and divide that by 365 days a year. No, that's incorrect. I only operate about 240 to 250 days a year. I bring it down to 240 operational days a year, and then I take my 10-year gross earnings or expenses, my expenses for 10 years, I break that down into per year, get an average cost per year, and then I take that number and divide it by 240 days, and it comes out about $650 a day. So if a broker calls me and says, hey, I got this run, it's 280 miles or 325 miles, I start at $650 to run his load, and I say I need to bet $300 for me, so you know, that's $650, $750, $850, $950, $950, $1,000. And then if it starts getting on up into, you know, 400 miles, 450 miles, then I start getting on up into $1,200 to $1,500. It just starts, you know, but the loads on the board right now, there's loads on the board for $650, $750, $800. But when you start getting into, and then the thing about it, they'll have them listed at 270 miles or 325 miles or 350 miles. But then whenever I'm looking at what I got to go do to get it, I got to drive 160 miles, 140 miles, 120 miles to go pick this load up. So I got to add that time and those miles into the cost of operation as well. It's just so annoying right now trying to stay busy, because all I'm doing is just spending. I'm making money to operate my business, and any extra money that I got in the bank for the last year has basically just been, I'm living off of past savings. I haven't even hardly turned a profit this year. It's just sickening, just sickening. Anyway, so that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to find, something to make good content on YouTube, and I wanted it to start out, I wanted it to be, the content to be about traveling and enjoying trucking and things you can do to enhance your experience on the road as a truck driver, such as stopping to visit when you're in Seattle or Sacramento or Los Angeles or Las Vegas, or maybe go to a place down in Florida and get out of the truck. But be truthfully honest, when you start doing those things, at the end of the day you're tired. So that means you got to take a day off on the road. Every day that you take off while you're on the road takes away from a day that you could be home. In other words, if you work 10 days on the road, you got approximately 4 days you can enjoy being home. Because like I just said a minute ago, I operate usually about 240 days a year. So if you take 5 days a week and multiply that by 50 weeks a year, what is that? That's 240, 250 days. That's about what you would average, at a regular job working full time. And if you can't make trucking work in those number of days, something's wrong. Something's majorly wrong. I've done digressed. This little post right here has been all over the place. But yeah, I'm going to try to make some new content here soon. And I'll be back on the road maybe tomorrow. I've got to get back out here. I mean, the thing is sitting there, and I've got to get out there and hustle and grind. So maybe tomorrow I'll post a new blog about booking a freight and show again what's involved in trying to book a load profitably and move to another area. Even when you book a load like daily, or when you're out there working on the road, you got to also look at where the load is going. You got to look at where the load's going, what you're picking up. For example, there's loads going to Florida. Like I said a minute ago, it costs me $1.65 to operate. So if somebody wants me to go to Florida, I need to make about $2.30 a mile to go to Florida. But somebody wants me to go to Miami, there's never nothing coming out of Miami, so I got to book a load. I got a deadhead almost a full day. It takes almost all day to go from Miami back to somewhere like Savannah. Once you get to Savannah, you're back in the freight lanes where we can make a profit again. Anything out of Florida, you're not going to make a profit. So a load is paying $2.30 to go to Miami. Even if they're paying $3.25, that's only giving you $1 a mile to come out empty. Just in fuel cost alone, you're roughly around 65 cents. So you haven't really done anything coming out of Florida. So if I take a load to Miami, it's going to take all day to get down there. I'm going to spend a whole day coming out empty. I don't know. It's just the nature of the business. And so for me to go to Florida, like to Miami, the way I normally do it is I just tell a broker, I charge you $2.50 a mile to go to Miami. You give me $850 on top of it as a surcharge to come out, because I don't even bother to look for freight. Now, I mean, yeah, I could probably, and there is occasionally some freight out of Florida, but it only pays like $1 a mile. So if you're going down there and sometimes it's not even picking up in Miami. If you're going to haul a cheap load like that out of Florida, it needs to pick up in Miami, very close to you, and it's got to drop off somewhere like Savannah, Macon. I'm not picking a load up in Florida and taking it to Ohio, Indiana, or Illinois or Michigan. That's out. Because why? Why? I could come all the way back out of Florida, grab a load out of South Carolina, Georgia, or North Carolina, or even Tennessee, and make more money out of this region going to Indiana, Illinois, or Ohio than I could with a load out of Florida. So, sorry for the overload, but that's just the way it is. There's so much runs around in my head all day long trying to, you know, to book freight and book loads. It's just unreal. You know, you just need a lot of knowledge to get out there and run a truck. And I think that's what goes on in the trucking business is there's just people come into it not really knowing their numbers. And they think that $1.60 and $1.90 a mile they're making profit because they came from a company where they were making 55 cents, 60 cents a mile, and all they count on is tires, truck payment, and insurance. And they underestimate their trucking maintenance. But there's so much more that goes into it. I mean, it's $2,000 a year for your tags. It's quarterly IFTA. You got to pay that. There's just all the other things aren't that much. It's like 4 cents per mile here, 3 cents per mile there, 2 cents per mile there. But all these little things add up. Even my meals on the road. Yeah, those things I can't count off, but I put it in my expenses. So whenever I'm spending money on the road, because everything I buy it on a credit card, and I download all those transactions weekly into my accounting program, and everything gets a category. You know, meals, truck payment, trailer payment, insurance, my maintenance. I've got my maintenance broke down into truck and trailer. I've got a tire category, and I've got subcategories under the tires, under the truck, and then the trailers. I've got 2 trailers, you know, so I've purchased 2 trailers, but it's been over 10 years. You figure you buy a new trailer, that's a 5-year payment. If you buy a second trailer, that's another 5-year payment. So people say, well, you got 2 trailers. That's, you know, yeah, but that's over a 10-year period. So that's like having a trailer payment the whole time. And the reason and one trailer is a dry van, and the other trailer is a step deck. And no, I got out of the dry van business pretty much. I mean, I still pull it occasionally. And what I'm leaning to do is I got 2 more years to pay my truck off. And kind of what I'm leaning to do is cherry pick loads in my region once all this is done. But now I'm getting so old, in 2 more years, I'm going to be 57. I've got, what, 5 more years to retirement age. And I'm really just burnt out. I mean, that's what I was saying a minute ago. Look at my eyes. I just got bags under my eyes all the time. And it's from just staring at the road and the stress of this trucking business, trying to make it work. I can make it work and I can turn a profit, but it requires hustling, getting out there and really hustling, maximizing every single day to the fullest, trying to get 9, 10, 11 hours in of drive time every single day, and organizing your days so that you're not stuck on weekends. That's another thing. You don't want to pick a load up that you know, that's 300 miles. I get people call me all the time right here at the house and say, hey man, I got a load that's going to Ohio. It's 500 miles. Well, that's a 1-day run. I don't want to pick a load up on a Friday and I got to pick it up in Spartanburg, which is 100 miles north of here. They go, well, you can pick it up and go back home with it if you want. Why would I do that? I got to deadhead 100 miles to get it. Then I got to go 100 miles backwards to my house. Then on Sunday, I've got to go the 500 miles that you're saying it is from Spartanburg to Ohio, plus the 100 miles. So I done added 300 miles onto your 500-mile run. Are you willing to pay for all of that? If you want to pay for all that, you want to give me another $850 on top of what you're paying me, let's do it. Oh no, I can't do that. Sorry, I can't do your load then. You know, that's that's the nuances of being an owner operator.